What's up, guys? This is A Rave Downtown, and today we are bringing you another video highlighting all of our favorite fighting game characters and our favorite fighting games. Today we are jumping right back into Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and we are showing off Jill Valentine. That's right, Jill Sandwich, the right-hand woman to Chris Redfield on the dead field, the bombshell with the blue bonnet, the starlet of stars. And that's all I got. Jill Valentine. So she's a pretty solid character. I'm not going to lie, folks. I actually had a pretty difficult time with Jill. She is one of my all-time favorite characters to play. You're going to hear that a lot for a lot of characters. But Jill is pretty solid. The only thing is when I was playing and trying to find new things, I was like, wow, like there's really not a lot here. But what she does have, she can do it extensively, and she's very effective. And really what makes her one of the better kind of mid to low tier is that speed, baby. She's got a ton of speed, and she is really fun to play with, and she could do some pretty cool tricks as well. So we already got the introductory stuff done in the first video, so we are going to jump right into it. First half being the commentary section, with the second half being them corny ass combos that you love so much. And due to the overwhelmingly positive comment section that is not existent at the time of recording this video, I just went ahead and made the executive decision that we're just going to go ahead and split each video into clips, probably a couple weeks down the road. Just so you don't have to suffer through my long voice for over 15-20 minutes. So yes, we will have separate videos, half being the commentary videos and then the other half being the combo videos. So depending on your range of skill, if you kind of want a more in-depth description of what's going on versus just kind of seeing what you can do and kind of muscle memory and kind of photographic memory type deal, you're going to have both. Best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. Kind of like two worlds colliding in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Without further ado, let us get into Jill Valentine. Here we go. Alright guys, like we always do at this time, I am using an Xbox 360 console, playing with a standard Xbox 360 controller, and of course I do that just to show you guys that all the combos that I'm doing can be performed fairly easily with enough practice and good timing. So what can I say about Jill Valentine? Well, she is fast as all get out, a lot of utility, kind of like Captain Commando. She also has people that she can summon, or rather things kind of like from the Resident Evil universe, which is actually pretty cool. As you can see here, she has 3 assists, so she has the heal type, dash, and projectile. Heal being, it's actually cool, a pretty big shout out to the Resident Evil series. She'll actually come out with an herb, either green or red and green, being, you know, that restores more damage. And then if you just walk into it, whoever's out gets their health back. A dash, which is pretty much the charge that you're going to see a lot of when I do the combos. And then projectile, I believe, is the grenade launcher. I would have to double check on that. So I'll just go ahead and pick 3 Jills with each assist type, and so we'll go through each one. Alright, so as you can see, we have the tackle. And then we have the, okay, so it is a grenade launcher, and then that's the herb. If you can see it, just like in Resident Evil, if you eat a herb, then you're good. And then if you're lucky, you get the red and green herb, which is an added health boost. So I love this game just because of the subtle shout outs to each character's individual universe. I think it's super cool. And it's the details like that that make Jill not only an awesome character to think of when thinking about this roster, because a lot of these sprites were recycled from like Marvel superheroes and the original Marvel vs. Capcom. So kind of to make original characters to go into this game, at least, I thought it was pretty cool, pretty creative. And so as you can see, comparatively, Jill is pretty small. Like I said, she doesn't have too much, or let me not say that. She has elements. We're going to get into kind of like her projectiles and some of the things she can summon. but a lot of it isn't very practical. Kind of like in the Captain Commando video, he has the 3 summons where he has the ninja, the mummy, and the baby, where I was like, you know what, the baby is kind of impractical. So too is the case with Jill, and so too is the case with a lot of fighting game characters. I mean, I'm sure there are certain moves that are just collecting dust. Like if there was like a national survey like on certain moves, I'm absolutely sure that there are plenty amongst the fighting game pantheon where they're like, listen, I don't even know why they assigned that to a character. And I can only imagine that's why the good Lord invented the phrase bread and butter, because really it's about just using what is practical, what is simple yet complex, and what you can pull off with the most confidence. And so always use what you're comfortable with. You don't have to use every single thing on a move list, but some of it has utility. And for all we know, you know, in the vast and infinite well that is Marvel vs. Capcom 2 content, I'm sure that people find use for virtually everything, because there's a lot of meat on this bone, and we are just taking tiny sweet nibbles. Sweet nibbles. Sweet nibbles. Okay, so back to Jill. So going into those summoning things I said, so she could summon things from like Resident Evil universe, you know, zombie game, pretty famous. I'm not going to sit here and try to explain what Resident Evil is to you. Zombies, man, zombies. So she can summon zombies. So there's one right now making its way on the catwalk. So if you didn't like standard zombie, you could always get the limited and rare burning zombie, which acts more as like a contact hit instead of a grab. This standard zombie is actually a guard breaker. If you were to refer to the move list right there, you see that it is actually a guard breaker. So that's cool. So somebody blocking too much in the game, all you gotta do is just whip out a zombie, and there you go. But I already know what you're gonna say. Oh my god, a rave downtown, that zombie, it's so slow. Anybody can just jump over it. What kind of utility does a zombie have? Well, we have options. Okay, so the zombie actually works twofold. Not only serving as a standing guard breaker, but also as a trap. And so if the zombie were to be hit by Jill or any other projectile or something, you notice that it goes on the floor and doesn't quite disappear instantly. And that is because in this state, the zombie then turns into a ground trap. And so if your opponent is caught lacking or forgets that that zombie is there, boom, now you have that same guard breaker ability. And that stun, of course, allows for you to come in with some sweet overhead combos and do some serious damage. And the good thing about it as well is that it is a long stun, so you have plenty of time to set it up. Now, this is not without rules, so generally speaking, regardless if the zombie makes contact either standing or on the ground, if you want to start a combo, then you have to be either standing, starting from an overhead, or crouched. Because any attack that's lower than the crouch, it will actually whiff. And so you don't want to be in a situation where you have your opponent grabbed by the zombie and you come in to try to do a slide or something like that, but it goes right through them and then ultimately they break free and then they just do a counterattack. So just rule of thumb, if you summon a zombie and the zombie makes contact, I would always recommend always starting with an overhead combo or just a basic standing combo where you kind of just use a light punch or a light kick and you just chain it into a bigger combo. And so that's the lowdown on the zombies. And then quickly talking about the burning zombie, you actually can't touch or hit this zombie. It really is just a projectile. But some advantages to the flaming zombie is that it actually can be present during hypers and other attacks. So you'll see in the combo video where you can summon the flame zombie and do a hyper or do a combo, and then the zombie continues to press forward, and then that could create opportunities with the right timing to extend combos. And then just a quick note, both versions of the zombies aren't invulnerable. They can be destroyed fairly easily, admittingly. But the cool thing about Jill is getting into the other projectiles she has, you can absolutely devastate an opponent by just summoning her projectiles, because though you can't duplicate the summons you put out, you can summon one of each of the projectiles that she has. So you can summon the zombies, the bird we're going to get into, and the dog. And so you can absolutely bombard whoever you're playing by just summoning, ground zombies, fire zombies, set traps with the zombies, and then summon the dog and the crow, which we're going to talk about right now. So it's important to note that with some of the projectiles, when you summon them, similar to like Ryu or Mega Man when they throw out fireballs, once they fire it, then they're free to move. Some of Jill's projectiles, she's tethered to the animation, and so it just takes longer for her to kind of exit out of the animation once she summons whatever she summons. So when talking about the crow, she actually ducks and does an animation to avoid it. And the animation in itself takes a lot of time to develop. So it's not as though she summons the crow and then she's able to move freely, but instead that entire animation is tethered to her character. Albeit that the crow is probably the second best of the projectiles that Jill has, just because it's fast and it has kind of a swooping motion. So actually in certain situations it's a pretty good anti-air. So we'll go ahead and keep that and say that that's useful. But to me, the best projectile that Jill has is actually summoning the dogs. So anybody who's played Resident Evil before, it's not a Resident Evil game unless there are some crazy ass zombie dogs. And even in a fighting game, Jill just continues to be tormented by all of the creatures that absolutely just want to murder her in the worst way possible. But now she can summon them for some good. Okay, so the zombie dogs are good in that not only are they fast, but Jill isn't tethered to the entire animation of them being summoned. And so there's one short animation where she kind of jumps over the dog because it runs through her, but then after that you are able to kind of move around. And as you'll see in the combo videos, I can do a short chain, call assist, and then at the end summon the dog. And then when the opponent contacts the dog, it's almost like a delayed hit that allows me to extend the combo for some added damage. So that is the kind of utility that I would say is useful for Jill. So definitely, when speaking on the things that she can kind of summon, her projectiles, kind of so to speak, air quotes, the basic zombie is great. And then you have the crow, which is a good anti-air, but just know that you can't really move once you do it. And then finally the dog and the burning zombie, which can stay on screen. Again, you could summon one of each of every zombie or animal in succession once their animation is over. Now, Jill does have traditional projectiles in the form of the grenade launcher she has. She could either aim them kind of mid-screen and then high. They're pretty slow, and the timing on them is pretty weird, so it's confident to say that compared to other characters that have super fast projectiles, those probably aren't the greatest option in comparison to like the zombies and the animals. So we can go ahead and say that that's rubbish. We'll just throw it out. She also has a counterattack, which I seldom use because with her speed, I'd much rather rely on that than having to play as defensive to set up that opportunity. Now, Jill isn't the most varied character when it comes to her chains. Really, she just has a 2-hit chain, and that includes a variation of her light kicks and light punches. So if you're on the ground, you're only looking at 2 solid hits before going into maybe a launcher or even the slide. So there's really not a lot of variations in her chains, although her chains are extremely fast, and so almost reflective of the character herself. She has these really good quick hits, these like fast combos that you are able to pull off pretty consistently, and that's really all you need. And especially pairing it with 2 of Jill's most prominent weapons, and that is her shoulder tackle, and even more recognizable than that, her famous slide to off the ground combo. That slide of hers is a game changer just as much as it could be equally as annoying when you play against Jill's and all they do is just slide, 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 slide. But they do that because they know that they can set up the off the ground combo. Now, doing the slide, in my opinion, doesn't really pay off unless you start the slide having already done a substantial amount of damage or maximize your damage, because Jill already has really short chains. So we're only talking about 2 to 3 hits before you actually hit the slide and go into the OTG. But if done correctly and if done in a way that's consistent but sparingly, because anybody who sees that you're just spamming the slide is just going to safe roll out of it, because obviously there had to be some kind of fail-safe in place so that the slide just isn't this magic bullet that can't be stopped, because it's crazy the kind of mix-up potential you have with having such a huge vulnerability where you can just play up top and then all of a sudden hit them with a slide and extend your combo tenfold. Like, that's crazy. So of course they put in a built-in fail-safe with the safe rolls, but if you do it, you know, tastefully, if you do it in a way that's not repetitive and you kind of psych your opponent out, guys, the slide is like absolutely golden. And not only does it set you up for more air combos, but it also sets you up for some gnarly assist combos that could lead to some incredible damage. And you'll see all of that inside of the combo section where I fool around with it. But generally speaking, there's not much else to say outside of what I have already. You couple Jill's relentless speed with the fact that she has amazing mix-up potential with that slide that also leads to potential off-the-ground combos. I mean, really, the only thing to speak on is timing. And so when I see people trying to learn how to do the OTG after the slide, a lot of people think that they have to get a hit soon or else the combo's gonna expire, but that's not the case. When you hit the slide, you actually have to wait until the animation is done. So you don't want to be too antsy or impetuous and try to get a hit in and then you lose the window opportunity, but you don't also want to be too slow. And so you have to have that just right window to wait right until the animation is done, and then bam, you hit them with a low kick, and then from there you could just hit your launcher and then you could just do your aerial combo. So if I had to kind of put a time marker to it, it's kind of like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And so once you get that rhythm down, pretty much you have the confidence and the versatility to either go into your launcher or even stay on the ground, and then you could either set up an assist combo or even a hyper, like hyper charging stars or something like that. So there's versatility and reward that comes with mastering the timing of the slide and the off the ground combo. But again, it's something that you have to use selectively, because any good player is just going to automatically safe roll, because you're already dealing with a player base that has faced Jills and they already come into a match pretty apprehensive to the slide, but all because you know that something's coming doesn't necessarily mean you can stop it. So play smart, play hard, play aggressive, play confidently. And so finally, I'm going to talk about her charge, her tackle, and then we're going to get into her hypers, and then we're going to show some combos. Okay, so I actually really like her tackle move. I speak a lot on how Jill doesn't have too many chains or extensive combos, but I think that was by design because the tackle plays so well into her fighting style, in that it's literally an option in every situation. You can slide into the tackle, you can do chains into the tackle, you can do a tackle even before you hit a hyper in the air. So they gave the tackle so much precedent to her character, and not only that, it could start and stop on a dime. And there's actually a combo in the video where I actually use the tackle almost as a tiger knee to kind of get me closer to the opponent to hit him with a hyper. And so the tackle has ridiculous utility. And the times that I play with Jill, after almost every combo, I always hit the tackle, because it can create opportunities for added damage, and it also can be comboed with 2 of the 3 hypers, one of which being the barrage of missiles, and then the other one being the hypercharging stars, where she basically does the tackle, but it's like amplified by 1,000. So yeah, those 2 hypers can actually be comboed with the basic tackle. Now, just like everything else, you have to eat the chicken and spit the bones out, so there are a few caveats. Do not use the heavy version of the tackle. It takes up way too much time, and generally speaking, it doesn't combo well with almost anything because it has such a long startup time. The same thing for the charging action. Similar to Mega Man, Jill can actually charge up her tackle and add more damage, but really it's not as practical as you would think. Even with Mega Man, you have to hold heavy punch for as long as you want to charge up the beam, and so it completely takes away your ability to use heavy punch to fire one-off shots. And so same applies to Jill, where you charge that up. Yeah, if you catch somebody off guard, that's going to be like monumental damage, because I actually charged up Jill's tackle and it actually does a boatload of damage. But the thing is, it's going to be pretty rare that you're going to be able to hit somebody with that unless you can chain it with a combo. And yes, I've been successful in finding combos where you can do some chains, charge up the tackle, and then release it at a later point. But the time that I actually charge the tackle comparatively to the other hits that I'm having to do just to keep the combo alive is very minuscule. So really there's just no point outside of just doing your basic tackle. And so that's just something to consider. Not only that, but you're going to feel pretty stupid if you charge that thing up for so long only to not get a hit and have to recharge. So again, not saying there isn't utility to it, but like I said, there's a lot of things that Jill has that simply doesn't play to the fact that she is an absolute powerhouse when she is fast, when she is simple, and when you're using her mix-ups or just getting in the head of other players to set up that OTG with the slide. So finally, I want to go ahead and talk about her hypers. As you can see here, Jill has 3 hypers, and we'll go ahead and pull up the move list. The hyper charging stars, which is extremely clever because it's a play off of Captain America's hyper, which is charging stars. And so STARS being the acronyms to the police force that Jill is in the Resident Evil series. I'm not even going to try to remember what the acronym is. I think it's like Special Tactics and Rescue Squad. Holy crap, that might be it actually. So yeah, there's that. It's that, huge ball of energy, and it can be performed in the air, which is really nice. You'll see that a lot with Jill players. They'll use that as kind of like the final action in a combo. And again, like I said in the beginning, you could use that basic tackle, hit it real quick, and then do the charging stars, and it doesn't even need to be in the corner, so that's really good. So that's just some added damage, and it looks cool because it's kind of like a slingshot effect where you're doing the basic tackle and then you're following it up with the mega charging stars, so that's always pretty cool. Then we have the rocket launcher. This is my least favorite of the 3, just because it doesn't seem as if it does too much damage, and weirdly enough, the missiles come out pretty erratically, and so if a player gets hit by one but doesn't get hit by the others, they could actually block the remainder of the hyper. So it's kind of hit and miss unless you know that you've hit your opponent kind of like in their mid area where they know that they would be hit with the radius of kind of how high and low the missiles hit. So I don't really like that about the hyper. I still use it to provide some variation and to be more eclectic, but realistically speaking, I use either the hypercharging stars or the latter of the 3, the Tyrant Escape. Now, this hyper, outside of it being, pretty decent damage, is just freaking cool as all out, because Jill summons the freaking Tyrant, okay? The main antagonist to a couple of the Resident Evil games, but pretty much an embodiment of like the big bad or like the huge bioterrorism weapon. So it's freaking awesome. When I first saw the hyper, I didn't really know what to expect, because you see Jill kind of opening up this hole or opening up this portal, and I don't know if the opponent is meant to fall in, but once they're caught in that radius or inside that spotlight, boom, the Tyrant just raises from the ground and just starts slashing and tearing it the F up. Like, it is beautiful. And then on top of that, because this is a Capcom game, because it's Resident Evil, you have the choice to either allow the hyper to end, or you can do quarter circle and kick, and then Jill gets back up and finishes off the tyrant with the missile launcher, which is like a signature thing to do in like almost every Resident Evil game. I can't tell you how many Resident Evils I played where it's at the end of the game, there's this huge monster, and somehow, some way, by divine intervention, some kind of crazy powerful rocket is just bestowed upon you, and you just blow that thing to all hell. And so the amount of detail just alone put into this hyper is highly commendable, albeit the fact that it can be risky, because if the opponent is not in the spotlight or in the designated area, and if they're not hit by that initial proximity hit that kind of knocks them back, then it's a bust. And so it's great to see, great to pull off. Yes, you can do assist combos into it. There are plenty of ways to combo into the hyper. I haven't found anything concrete in which Jill herself can just consistently hyper into it, or combo into it rather, but it can be comboed into, and so that's something that you'll also see in the combo video, which we are pretty long overdue for. This was a long one today. Alright guys, so that was Jill. Again, I'm hoping that I'm hitting all the points that you guys want to hear. I'm hoping that I'm giving you guys insight that is pragmatic and practical to improving your game. A lot of what we talk about here is subjective outside of the objective combos. So if there was any other angle that you guys would kind of like me to explore in these videos, feel free to just leave any comment you have, or if you have found anything cool with Jill, please go ahead and just add that to the comment section. I love to hear what you guys are able to pull off with Jill. With a game as big as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, with all of the characters and all of the combos, I'm sure there are so many quirks and different things that you guys were able to pull off. So anything and everything that you guys find, please feel free to just leave it in a comment. Also, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell for any notifications that you guys want. And make sure to follow us at Low Legends on Twitter for the most recent updates on videos as well as when they drop. And so without further ado, I'm going to shut up. It's time for corny ass combos.
Wonder.
I'm a member of STARS. Yes!